Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all so easily.
Hi, my name is Craig Thompson Wood. I'm your host on Teaching with Board Games. As part of my own personal edification and professional development, and for the purposes of this channel, I felt it was really something I needed to do some more of the core professional reading on gamification and really understanding what the experts are saying about it. So as I talk about gamification, then I truly do understand what it is that it is about and have a greater knowledge of this topic. So in today's episode, I'll be looking at the book Gamification, Even Ninja Monkeys Like to Play, and this is the second edition known as the Unicorn Edition with extra content. I would say the author's name, but I'm going to print it at the bottom of the screen right now because I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce your name and I don't want to butcher the pronunciation. So let's get right to this. So in the book Gamification, Even Ninja Monkeys Like to Play, it does a really good job of breaking down the whole complex subject of gamification, what it is and how it works and everything, and puts it into terms which are easy even for the layman to understand. And so I appreciated that about it. And so if you are looking for this kind of thing yourself, then this is what I would recommend this book. Let me just say that up front, that I think this is for people who want to understand more about gamification, whether it is for educational purposes like myself, like trying to do things with gamification in the classroom, or for whatever reasons you'd want to gamify some system, then this is definitely a book that you'd be wanting to pick up and look into, because I think this is really covers it all very well, very thoroughly, and in such a way that's easy for people to understand. So the book breaks down into four major parts, which are theory, science of gamification, building a gamified system, and then planning and implementing the gamified system. Let me look at each of those parts in a little more detail. So in the theory of gamification, the author looks at such things as what is gamification, just making sure that we understand and have the common definition, common understanding of what is gamification, as opposed to, say, game-based learning. It gives us that full definition of gamification from few different perspectives, as well as then his own definition that he has come up with to what is gamification. He then goes into such things as defining games, what is a game, what is play, what is fun, things like that, just things around the theory of gamification, the whole idea of games and playing and having fun to help in achieving the desired effect, whatever it is your desired effect of gamification, and then looking at some of the game mechanics. And that, in a nutshell, is what is happening in the first chapter of theory. The second chapter is Science of Gamification, and in this one he's looking at such things as motivation, what motivates us, what motivates different people, different types of motivation, as well as things like rewards, intrinsic rewards versus extrinsic rewards. So intrinsic rewards would be things like where you are doing things for the enjoyment of it, for the joy of learning, say, for example. Whereas an extrinsic reward, you're doing it for the reward itself, whether you're getting like a badge in a gamified system or money. I mean, let's face it, like our jobs are extrinsic rewards because we get paid to do what we do. Unless it's this, because I'm still not getting paid anything for doing this, but hey, I do this intrinsically because I do enjoy doing this. But he digs deeper into those ideas of the science behind it, how the brain functions, how people are motivated, and what drives certain people. It really sort of digs deep into that whole idea, because there are many different types of personality types, and how they're going to be motivated is going to be very different from one person to another. And different types of things that will motivate the intrinsic versus the extrinsic. And speaking from an educational perspective, I mean, I know that I've had this debate before with some people about, students and learners should be intrinsically motivated. Well, yes, ideally they should, but there's also that idea of the extrinsic. Sometimes they need to have that little carrot, as they would, dangling in front of them to motivate them to move forward, and then hopefully at some point they start to understand and feel more positive about their learning, that they become the intrinsic. So it's this whole complex topic which he covers quite well in this chapter. The third chapter is building a gamified system. So in this, he talks about where to start. He talks about such things as, experience points and badges, leaderboards, things like that, and how to use those in order to create a gamified system. It talks about emotional considerations of a gamified system, as well as the mechanics and elements you might use. But let me just sort of say up front, though, that just taking some of these elements of building a gamified system and just sort of slapping them onto whatever you're doing does not a gamified system make. We'll talk more about that a little bit afterwards. And the final chapter is all about planning and implementing the gamified system. So once you have the gamified system created, how do you then go about getting the users into it? How do you get them to buy into this to the point where they're interested and want to continue playing it? How do you, once they're into it, how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them from getting bored and losing interest in the game? So there's ways that you would go about doing that. There's also the idea of balance, because if users feel that the game is unbalanced, unfair in any way, then they're going to be less interested, less motivated to continue playing, because they're just going to feel that, well, what's the point? This is not fair. Those are some of the main ideas of that final chapter. So in my final thoughts for the book, I just think that it was, like I said, a really well done book about the whole topic of gamification. I feel that now that I've read this, I have a much better understanding, a more thorough understanding of gamification. I don't pretend to understand everything about gamification. I mean, I've only read the book once, but I know that now, having this book, that I can always go back and reference some of the ideas in there and look into the things that I might consider for my future, for my classroom, in terms of gamifying a system, a classroom system in this case. But one thing he stresses is, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can't just sort of, like I said, put badges and experience points, just sort of slapping things on there, like to say, okay, well, there we go, now we have a gamified system. It takes a lot more thought and planning to do this kind of thing properly. And so to be careful, be aware of that idea that I think some people might have, where if I just do some of these simple things, then people are going to buy into this and like this, and it's going to make things better. It could be, it could work, it might not work, or it could just go completely wrong and be a waste of your time, as well as make things worse than before. I mean, it's just really there's talks a lot in here about how to properly plan these things, to really think things through carefully before you go just haphazardly creating a gamified system. So again, things I would really strongly consider in here, to look over and read. So again, if you're looking at gamifying a system like a classroom, then this is definitely something I would be looking into having a read over for your own education. But now, speaking as a classroom teacher, one thing I did not see in here was examples of things that I would be using in a classroom. I mean, this is talking about gamification on a very broad perspective, where there may be corporations and companies and all kinds of different people using gamified systems. And so it's not just exclusively, I know my focus for any of the gamification that I'm talking about is specifically focused to education, where this is not. So they do mention it a couple times in here, some resources where I might be looking into in the future for gamification of classrooms, but this is not something which is going to be specifically focused to that. So you have to keep that in mind as well as you're reading it, that this is a broad view of gamification over all potential areas or usages in different platforms, different venues. So like I say, so if you're looking for specific ideas for gamification, this is not the one you're looking for, but it does give you that good overview overall of kinds of things that you could be considering, or should be considering, when implementing a gamified system into your classroom. If you have any questions about gamification, even Ninja Monkeys like to play, Unicorn Edition or not Unicorn Edition, please leave a message in the comment section below and I'll do my best to help you. If you have any other suggestions for reading I might do on the topics of gamification, game-based learning, anything like that, any books which you know of which you think would be appropriate topics for this channel, please leave me that message in the comment section below. I love getting the suggestions and ideas from the viewers, because that's where I get a lot of great content for this channel. And if you're new to the channel, then what I'm doing here is I'm putting out content of gamification, game-based learning. I'm reviewing games which may be suitable for educational purposes. Now I've started looking at games which, or rather books rather, which are good for educational purposes. Talking about publishers, game publishers, book publishers, even if there are out there. Anything to do with gamification, game-based learning, and how to make learning more fun. My whole mantra about teaching is I teach the way I wish I was taught, and I just wish that my classrooms were more gamified. I wish my classrooms made more use of games in learning. And so I want to share my knowledge with you And if this sounds like something good to you, then please remember to hit like and subscribe down below. It really does help. And that's going to wrap it up for today. Until next time, I am Craig Thompson Wood, your host on Teaching with Board Games, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.
Are you coming back to school with me?